Up next on Inside the SCCA, a youth movement.
Make their head drop.
Welcome to this episode of Inside the SCCA. 197, I think, is the episode number. I'm Brian Bielanski. Welcome to the show. I'm real excited about tonight's episode. Joining me tonight is one of the up-and-coming rising stars here in the club. Her name is Shelby Robbins. Welcome, Shelby. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Usually when we talk about rising stars, we're talking about someone who drives a race car. But today, we're talking about someone who is a rock star behind the scenes and the 2024 SCCA Road Racing Scrutineer of the Year. That's a pretty lofty title after only being a member for about a year. So Shelby, I don't know if you know, but a lot of times these awards go out for people who've done a lot of stuff for the club over lots and lots and lots of years. Every once in a while, someone shines in a single season, and that's how they get it for that particular season. That's what's happened with you. But you're brand new, and we asked this question to everybody who's on the show. If you haven't had a chance to watch the show, you won't know what's coming. It's an easy question. How did you get mixed up in this crazy sport that we all love?
So racing or the SCCA?
Racing in general. How did you get interested? How did you get involved?
So I grew up with my grandpa, and he did dirt track racing when he was younger. So he always had NASCAR and other races on the TV while I was growing up.
Very cool. Very cool. So a lot of us have that family connection. Somebody who came before us, got us interested, got us involved. Did your grandpa take you to the racetrack at all, or was he basically done racing by the time you hung out with him?
He was done racing by the time I was born.
Okay. So how did you take it from sitting next to grandpa watching racing to actually figuring out how to get involved?
So I was talking with some family friends from Central Florida, and they recommended going to an SCCA event, and I volunteered at the Atlanta Super Tour this year in March, and I've gone to every race possible since then.
Very cool. So did you volunteer at the first race you ever went to?
Yes.
A lot of people who are just getting started with us find it difficult to figure out how to get involved. There's this phrase that I hate, but it's popular, and we're referred to the Secret Car Club of America. Sometimes it's hard to navigate. You know, we've got lots of regions, different divisions. It's not the most simple system in the world to figure out. How did you figure out how to get and volunteer right at that first race?
They helped us navigate the website and how to sign up as members.
So were they already members?
They used to be. They're not currently since they...
Cool. Well, we are very lucky that they directed you in our direction. So, and I know that the folks down in the Southeast agree, because that's how you get to become the worker of the year, because somebody thought you were doing a great job. So tell us about that first race weekend. You know, navigating the first weekend can be a little bit nerve-wracking and a little bit of anxiety. Tell us about that first weekend.
Well, it was quite nerve-wracking, but it was also really exciting, and everybody was really nice and welcoming to me, and we had a few other new people as well in tech.
Okay.
So it was fun overall.
So this is going to get me in a roundabout way to talk about where you're sitting at this moment, I'm guessing. When people show up to the track for the first time, tech's not always the first place they go. Why tech?
Because I like the more technical aspect of the cars, and I want to be close to them as much as possible.
So you're in a brick-walled room. You're not in the penitentiary. You're not in a jail cell. Where are you sitting at right now?
I'm currently sitting in the study room of my dorm at Tennessee Tech.
Tennessee Tech. Oh, see now? See how I did that? See how I got from tech inspecting to Tennessee Tech? I'm pretty proud of myself on that one. What are you studying?
I'm studying mechanical engineering.
Very cool. And you have an emphasis in
Vehicle engineering.
Vehicle engineering. See, it's all coming full circle now. All coming full circle. What came first, the trip to SCCA race and tech, or going to college to study study engineering?
The race came first, and then I am currently a freshman.
Okay.
This semester.
Was going into engineering kind of the plan before you went racing, or is it kind of something you found while at the racetrack?
Yes, it was the plan beforehand, and had some people help with advice and stuff along the way as well at the racetrack.
Cool. What was your, when you decided that going into an engineering background was something you wanted to do, what was the driving force in that?
I want to someday work in professional racing.
You do, huh? So we have cool programs here in the club. One of them is Women on Track. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that yet. I'm hoping you've had a chance to talk with those folks, and they're a wonderful organization whose goal is to find ways to get women more involved in our club and motorsports in general. One of our guests on our show, who has been on several times, is Nicole Stout. She is one of the head engineers for Goodyear's program with the SCCA. So definitely need to get you and Nicole together because I think she's got some background and some experiences that I think she would be an awesome mentor for you. And I will certainly make those connections here. So when you're in your classes and you're talking about stuff, do you think about what you see at the racetrack and apply it to your classes, or do you take your classes and apply it to what you see at the racetrack?
Right now, it's really neither, because we're not too far into the actual vehicle part. I don't get to do that in the new year. So right now, we're just working with code.
So that's deeper into the program, and you're only a freshman at this point.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So first year, tell us about that first weekend. What did you get a chance to do at that first weekend at the Super Tour?
So I got to learn a lot of how they check the cars for different compliance rules and what rules apply to what cars.
Sure.
It was very fun.
It's a lot of information, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
How do you
learning?
Yeah. How did you figure out how to process a lot of that when you took it? So how many weekends have you done? How many races have you been at so far? About?
I'm gonna have to count on my hand for a minute.
That's fine, no problem. I now know why Shelby was the worker of the year, because she's still counting on her hand how many races she went to. All right, where are we at? What number?
9, and I'm going to Atlanta this weekend.
9. Is it the ARC this weekend?
Yes.
Yeah. I was, I believe I was at the first. So I was back in the 90s, I lived in Atlanta and spent a lot of my life at Road Atlanta. So the first race you went to is at a racetrack that is very near and dear to my heart. So I absolutely love it. There haven't been back in many, many years, and I look forward to getting back there one of these years. So how quickly did you progress through the program as far as your learning to the point where I understand that you were doing full techs on cars at the runoffs this year? You know, a lot of people take a long time before they get to that. Obviously, you've squeezed a lot into your 9 events.
Yes. So I guess it varied by event because some of them were super tours, some of them were just small regionals, and different regions wanted different checks. So I got a lot of different information of how different regions do things. And I guess I just was able to remember it pretty easily.
Yeah. It's cool that you were able to go and work with different regions because, like you said, every region does something a little bit differently. And what one focuses on, another might not. And it gives you a kind of a much more well-rounded, teaching platform because, and some people teach one way and others teach another way. So that's a pretty cool way that you went about it. So which tracks did you get to your first year?
So I've been to Atlanta twice so far.
Okay.
AMP, CMP, the VIR twice, Mid-Ohio, Barber, and Road America twice. So I guess 10 races so far, actually.
Okay. So there's a level of dedication to this. We're obviously most folks who will be watching know we're all volunteers. You don't get paid for this. You spend your own money to get back and forth to the races. You're a freshman in college, and I've learned that it's not appropriate for me to ask a lady how old she is, but it strikes me that you're rather young. You went. Tell me about your experience going to the June sprints this year.
It was really fun and really hectic. We had a ton of cars. The weather wasn't so good most of the time. We managed to get one dry day, but it was just really nice to see so many cars show up.
Yeah.
And work with the different cars.
Sure. You kind of buried the lead, though. Now, when you go to the track, do you usually go with someone?
It depends. Half the time I do, half the time I don't. I was by myself for that race.
So you went were you living in Mississippi at the time?
No, I was in Far East Tennessee.
Okay. So you went from East Tennessee up to Wisconsin by yourself. What kind of an adventure was that?
It was pretty tame up until Chicago, hit the traffic.
Yeah.
And it was about 14 hours. I think I had 2 gas stops.
Uh-huh.
And that was it. I tried to make it as straight through as possible.
Yeah. And did you camp?
Yes, I stay in my car for races.
Wow. That's commitment. I'm just, not a lot of, I'm going to guess that you're 18 or 19 years old. Not a lot of 18 or 19-year-olds would take that on and make that trip by themselves, and I think it's fantastic that you're so into it that you want to go on these adventures. The first year, I mean, obviously I'm going to guess now that you're in school, you might not get to do as much next year as you did this year. Just tell me a little bit about the whole adventure of the whole thing. That's got to just been a blast.
Yeah, it really has. It's so nice being able to go to the races and see how things work behind the scenes and meet everyone there. It's very much it's less like a workplace and more like a family environment because everybody is so nice and everybody knows everybody.
That's fantastic. We have, especially in our worker ranks, we sometimes have a hard time attracting new people, let alone young new people, to get involved with what we do. I'm going to take a break here real quick, and I got a little something I got to do here on the show, but stay with me, because when I come back, I want to talk to you about that. And, your experience of how you've been treated so far, and maybe get some thoughts from you on what we can do to attract new members and new younger members. So we're going to do that in just a second, okay? Let's do this. We have a situation going on, folks, and if you follow the club on the Facebook page and all that kind of stuff, you'll know that we have a member who had a medical emergency at the runoffs this year. His name's Mike West, and he is one of the race directors for our Super Tour, and he was one of the race directors at the runoffs. He had a medical emergency, fell down during one of the meetings, and he hit his head on the ground, and it caused him to have a traumatic brain injury. And he's been in a hospital in Wisconsin now for the last since the runoffs, a couple different hospitals, and we are raising some money to help get him home. Home is near Memphis, Tennessee, and but I want to just tell you a quick story about Mike that I think kind of exemplifies why we're all pulling for him so hard. And I mean, any member of our SCCA family gets this love. But Mike is one of those guys I've gotten to know over my 2 year as being the Super Tour, one of the Super Tour announcers, and I'm the guy who at the Super Tour gets on the PA system and says, driver number 54, so and so, report to the race director, and usually that means that the driver number 54's done something wrong, and they got to go to talk to Mike about something. And I had an opportunity or need to do this at one of the Super Tours over the last 2 years. And the person who I had to send to Mike is a friend of mine. And I don't remember what it was that he had done that caused him to have a discussion with the race director. But Mike has this amazing way of dealing with people. And after his discussion with the race director, I caught up with my friend. And I asked him, I said, so, how was your chat with Mike? and he said, I've never been told I messed up and then been happy about it when I was done. Mike just has this way of being very mentoring in these discussions and taking difficult situations and making them go as smoothly as possible. All of us make mistakes over time. I drove for a long time. I drove for a bit, and I certainly wasn't perfect on the racetrack. I'm going to get back behind the wheel again here soon. I don't suspect I will be perfect behind the racetrack either, but it takes a special kind of human being to be able to have those discussions, a special kind of manager of people, and Mike is that kind of person. I've learned that over the last 2 years. I've also just learned he's just a top-notch human being. And we put together a GoFundMe to help get him the air ambulance that he needs to get back and forth or back to home, so that he can continue his rehab and his recovery at home. We've already exceeded the goal of that we had, which is $25,000, but we want to try to double that. There's a ton of expenses. If anybody's ever had a family member who's been in long-term care, you know that no matter how good your insurance is, it doesn't cover all the bills. One of the things the insurance doesn't cover for Mike is his air transport back to Memphis, and then all of the other stuff, the money they've spent for hotels and meals while they've been in Wisconsin, being next to him and his wife and some of his family members. So we want to make sure that when they get home, they can take care of all those bills and get him well as quickly as possible. So I will put a link to the GoFundMe in this post here, in the show notes here, and I'm going to post this little video by itself as well. I'll put a link in the show notes and on the posts. It would be really great, even if you could only give $5 or $10. All of that will help. There's been some really generous donors. Can't thank those folks enough, and the folks who've written big checks, as well as the folks who've written the $5 and $10 checks. All of it is really important. Mike's a great guy. He's a great family. His wife's with him at the racetrack. We love her to death, and we just want to help them out. So please do what you can. We've got probably another couple of weeks before the GoFundMe closes, but we've met the goal, but we want to try to double the goal to make sure that they're really set for the future for him and for his recovery. So, all right, let's get back to the show. Bringing back on here Shelby Robbins, the 2024 Scrutineering Scrutineering Worker of the Year. And thanks again, Shelby, for being with me today on the show. I've been looking forward to this. Heard a lot of stories. I wish I would have had a chance to meet you at the runoffs, but I was running around doing my thing. You were running around doing your thing. I'm sure, though, that somewhere along the lines we'll cross paths here. All right, so before I went and talked about Mike there, I mentioned we tend to have an issue, and I think it's probably the same for a lot of organizations who are volunteer-based. You know, attracting volunteers, making it fun for them to come, making it worth their while can sometimes be hard to do. You have to be pretty into it to be and want to come and spend your money and keep doing it. Getting young volunteers is sometimes hard. Getting new volunteers is hard. Do you have any thoughts on what we can do better, or what you found that was successful that made you want to keep coming back?
I think a good place to start with finding new and young volunteers is obviously college campus. I've got lots of friends that want to join me at a race. They've just got to figure out a time in their schedule next semester. And what made me come back was just simply everyone is incredible, and I love the cars.
Yeah. Let's say I'm here in Southern California. You know, what do we do to reach the college campuses? What's the best way? Do we look for engineering programs? Do we look for car clubs? What's the best way for us to get in touch with people like you?
I think both. Really, if you can find an engineering program that focuses on vehicles, there's most likely people in there that are within a car club as well.
Yeah.
I know we've got quite a big club on campus here.
What are predominantly the cars in your car club? Would you be at the car club meeting? You said there was a meeting tonight. Would you be at the car club meeting if you weren't here with me?
Yeah, I'm going there afterwards.
Oh, so we want to get done quick so you can get to the car club meeting.
Oh, no, you're fine.
What's the what kinds of cars do the people in the car club have at the college level these days?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. We don't limit who can come based on their cars. So we have Miatas, motorcycles, BMWs, Audis.
Nice.
We have a right-hand drive MR2 and everything in between. We've got a few SUVs.
Cool. When you share your stories with the folks in your engineering program, when you share your story about the club with the people at the car club, what do they think?
They think it's really cool, and I always try to invite people to come to races as well when I'm talking about it. Just because I love bringing people and introducing people to the SCCA. It's such a nice place.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of working in tech? Which part of the process do you enjoy the most?
Being up close and getting a good look inside the cars.
How about just the general experience of being at a race weekend?
Yeah. It's great being able to both work with the cars and then also watch them race and meet the drivers and the teams and everything that goes into it.
How has your experience been? Have you been welcome pretty much at all the races you've been to?
Yes. Yeah. Everyone is incredible.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Any fun stories that you can tell? Any protests you've had to work with, and anything? And you don't have to name cars or people. What's been the most interesting experience you've had to go through so far? Obviously, the runoffs had to have been pretty interesting. A lot of extra stuff happens at the runoffs that doesn't happen at a normal race weekend.
I think one of the most interesting things that has happened while I was in tech was at runoffs. And we had a car that I was getting a fuel sample from, and it had no fuel port. Anything to give one, and they still gave me one. So
that's a penalty, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm sure that was noted in the logbook. How did they get you the fuel? Did they just unhook a fuel line from the fuel injection system or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. That's what they did.
It always strikes me as how someone could get to the runoffs and not have the fuel port.
I believe they were also a Pro Series car.
Oh.
I cannot remember what kind of car it was off the top of my head.
Now we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. So that's an interesting tech inspector conundrum, isn't it? So my guess is that the Pro Series probably doesn't require a fuel port.
No, they don't.
And we do. So if there was a fuel port on the car, it would be illegal for the Pro Series. And if there, or maybe it wouldn't be, it would just be something, an add-on. So how did you and your tech inspection buddies deal with that? Was there a penalty involved with that, or did you tell them to go put a fuel port on and come back later? What was the situation there?
There was a write-up, and they were told that they are required to have a fuel port when running with the SCCA.
Got it. Yeah, we really do want to try to let people be on the racetrack. I mean, it is the goal. You know, everyone gets afraid of going to tech afterwards or going across the scales. And 90% of what we do in tech, right, is just to make sure cars are safe, right?
Yeah, that's the big part of it, just to make sure everybody's safe.
Yeah. Have you gotten a chance to do any annual techs on the cars yet?
Yes, I've done a few. I actually did one that was kind of a rush job at runoffs because I come back from, I got a lap in the safety car around the track, and I came back to pick up my lunch, and then I was going to do pit tech.
Okay.
And I was pulled over to do an annual on a Miata minutes before he was to go out on track.
Nice. And you got it done? No problems?
Yeah. No problems.
Very cool. Very cool. There's a fan in the chat. Apparently he also is your wingman for some of these races. This would be Malcolm Caldwell.
That's my dad.
Yeah, I know. he's all proud of you, telling me all the stuff you've done here. So I love it. My dad was the guy who got me involved too. So it was along with me. So I just love that. So, well, welcome, Malcolm, and thank you for sharing Shelby with us at the racetrack. We really appreciate it. And he tells me that the annual tech was 10 minutes before the session. So that's a pretty impressive turnaround time on an annual tech. So
luckily, it was a brand new car, so there wasn't a lot of issues or anything to be checked over. It was a new logbook that had been issued, so it was a clean car.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's ask two questions here. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. Before we ask these two questions, let me get my bills paid. So stay with me. Don't go anywhere. I want to take an opportunity real quick here to thank the people who helped me do the show. And, of course, this doesn't happen by itself. And the first off, of course, it's Inside the SCCA, presented by RaceSchool.com. They are our presenting sponsor for the show. They are a fantastic school out here in California. They do a full SCCA competition license school. They've got defensive driving. They've got high-performance driving schools as well. They're based out of Buttonwillow and Willow Springs. Really good people out there. And, again, cannot thank them enough. RaceSchool.com. Check them out as well. Solo Performance Specialties. Dave and his crew out there, they're have got a website, of course, where you can get all the stuff you need for your autocross program. They are at many of the Solo National Tour races, so show up and check out their trailer. They were at the Solo Nationals, and every time I looked over there, they were putting new tires on a wheel. So they also do tire work at the Solo events as well, mounting and balancing and all that kind of stuff, and sales, of course. So if you need something with them and you want it brought to one of the events, get a hold of them ahead of time and they can bring it to the events. Really good people there, of course. And then, of course, Ray Esports. Ray is the official sim racing league of Inside the SCCA. Stevie Ray does a great job with that. His stuff is changing just a little bit, welcoming in a bunch of other groups as well as the SCCA folks. And we're going to get him on the show here in a couple of weeks and and talk a little bit about all the great stuff he's got going on. So big thank you to all the folks who help make the shows possible. And if you want to check out any of those folks, check out their information in the show notes. And, of course, tell them that I sent you. All right, back here with Shelby Robbins here, doing the show here with us this afternoon. Of course, this evening, I guess most of the world we're in this evening, and unless you're out in Hawaii, and then it's still this afternoon. But so Shelby, a couple of final questions, I guess, before we get out of here. What's your SCCA goal? You're young, you got a lot of life ahead of you in the SCCA. What do you want to do with the club?
I just want to keep going to races and gain more knowledge and meet more people.
Very cool. Very cool. And your long-term goal, I know you're in an engineering program. What if you could see you in 10 years, what's Shelby doing in 10 years?
Hopefully working with a professional racing team.
Cool. Is there a particular type of racing you want to get into, or is it a little open at the moment?
I really like the endurance 24-hour racing, so that would be my top pick.
Very, very cool. So, well, there's a lot of us in the club who know a lot of people in that world, and I guarantee you keep doing what you're doing, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you. And I look forward to following along and seeing where this whole thing takes you. And if there's anything I can do to help connect you with folks, you know how to get a hold of me now. And I've got a couple of folks I don't want to get you in touch with. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Very, very cool. All right. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the SCCA, presented by RaceSchool.com. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the RacingWire Podcast Network so you won't miss any episodes. Would also be great if you leave a comment, especially if it's a good one. You can follow us on social media to find out who our next guest is. On Twitter, it's @RaceAnnouncer. There's a new Inside the SCCA every week. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and go play with cars. Inside the SCCA is a presentation of the RacingWire Podcast Network and Rule 15 Productions. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by the Sports Car Club of America. The views expressed within are those of the host and our guests and not that of the SCCA.
I'm Abby Shear, and when I'm on my way to an autocross, I listen to the Inside the SCCA podcast.